Hello, I'm Maria Titizian.
And I'm Rubina Margosian, and welcome to the Week in Review for the week of March 26.
In the news, Armenia to allocate over $200 million to infrastructure projects in Artsakh. 5 former presidents of Armenia and Artsakh meet to discuss post-war situation. National Assembly lifts martial law, passes another law significantly increasing fines for insults and defamation. This week, the Constitutional Court started the examination of applications submitted by former President Robert Kocharyan and the Court of First Instance regarding the constitutionality of Article 300.1 of the Criminal Code, usurpation of state power. And today, the court delivered its decision declaring Article 300.1 in contradiction with Articles 78 and 79 of the Constitution and invalid. Aram Vartevanyan, one of Kocharyan's lawyers, spoke with journalists and said that this article no longer exists and that Ana Danibekyan, the judge presiding over Kocharyan's trial, will terminate criminal prosecution under Article 300.1. Before the Constitutional Court made the decision, Judge Danibekyan had announced that moving forward, Kocharyan's lawyers can no longer submit motions delaying the actual trial process. His defense team boycotted the trial and left the courtroom. It was expected that during the next court session, prosecutors would present the indictment. We will have more on this developing story next week.
Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan announced in Parliament this week that the upcoming snap elections will be held by a proportional system instead of the open list component or the rating system based on the current electoral system. Pashinyan noted that the decision was made after consultations with both parliamentary and extra-parliamentary opposition forces as well as civil society.
Edmund Marukyan, the leader of the opposition Bright Armenia Party, voiced his disapproval of the proposed reforms of the Electoral Code, saying, quote, "The rules of the current game cannot be changed after announcing the day of elections." However, his party, Bright Armenia, is expected to participate in the election regardless. Prosperous Armenia Party Member of Parliament Shaka Isayan said that their party will be running separately without forming any alliances with other political forces. And, the Prosperous Armenia was part of the opposition Homeland Salvation movement who didn't want snap elections. So Prosperous Armenia has said that it will be running.
And also, to be fair, these changes to the Electoral Code have been planned for years. They were planned before the 2018 elections, parliamentary elections, and they've been in the process. It's not like they just
right. And I did a podcast this week with a member of parliament and coordinator of the working group on electoral code reform, Saman Zaspanelian, and he explains the whole process there. So if you're interested, you should tune into that. I think it was an important discussion.
And as a reminder, Armenia will be heading to snap parliamentary elections on June 20. Pashinyan is expected to resign in mid-April, after which parliament will be dissolved. And to date, several political forces have announced that they will be participating in the elections. That is, including the two parliamentary opposition forces. Also, Citizens' Decision, party that secured 0.68% of the vote in the 2018 elections, will be participating. The Home-led party, led by the former head of the National Security Service, Artur Vanetsyan, also said that they will be participating.
Right, it's not clear what the other parties will do at the moment, so we'll be reporting and following that in the coming weeks for sure. Well, today, Prime Minister Pashinyan and President of Artsakh, Arayik Harutyunyan, held a joint Security Council meeting in Yerevan. During the meeting, Pashinyan announced that 110 billion Armenian dirhams will be allocated for housing construction and infrastructure projects in Artsakh. 52 billion of that amount will come from the Armenian government and 58 billion by the Hayastan All Armenia Fund. This is approximately $210 million. Harutyunyan noted that they already have plans for the construction of 4,000 houses, and new projects are expected to be developed for the construction of another 2,000 in the coming few months.
And in the meantime, former presidents of Armenia and Artsakh, including Levon Terbedrosyan, Robert Kocharyan, Serge Sargsyan, Bako Sahakyan, and Arkady Rogasyan, had a meeting today in Yerevan. According to a statement issued by Arman Musinyan, the spokesperson of Armenian National Congress, the presidents discussed issues regarding the post-war situation in Artsakh and possible developments.
As of March 24, free movement on Pagramian Avenue has been restored, which had been blocked by the opposition Homeland Salvation Movement since February 24. A day earlier, the opposition movement announced that they have relocated their camp, as it were, to Demircan Street, which crosses Bahramian Avenue, in order to maintain public pressure and coordinate further actions. They also said that they will be starting a new wave of political actions, expanding the, as they said, geography to other regions of the country. And furthermore, on March 28th, the Homeland Salvation Movement will hold what they're calling a nationwide rally on Bahramian and Demircan streets to present their sort of upcoming plans, the actions that they will be taking. They said that our purpose and agenda remain unchanged. We will fight and we will win. They said that they were successful in securing public pressure. But I mean, I'm just glad that Bahramian Avenue is now cleared because we're not stuck for an hour.
Well,
in traffic.
it was closed for a long time, and it was seeing the camp as that was there, and most often very few people there,
Right.
not counting the days of the rallies. It was really an artery to the city that was blocked for.
Yeah,
way
and they
too
said
long.
that in their statement. They said that, taking into consideration
The inconvenience.
yeah, the inconvenience for residents, they
Yes.
have decided.
Yes. And this week, President Armen Sargsyan held meetings with Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, head of the MyStep parliamentary faction, Lilit Makunz, and leader of Bright Armenia faction, Edmond Marukyan. The president's office issued 3 similar statements about those meetings, saying that they discussed the situation in the country and their position on the upcoming SNAP parliamentary elections.
This week at the National Assembly, it was quite busy. So let's take a look at what they've been doing. So Parliament has overwhelmingly voted to lift martial law in the country that was declared at the beginning of the 2020 Artsakh war in September. The bill was tabled by the 2 parliamentary opposition forces, Prosperous Armenia and Bright Armenia. As a reminder, the government refused to lift martial law even after the signing of the November 10 trilateral agreement, but at the time it removed some restrictions affecting freedom of speech, assembly, and international travel. Both parliamentary and extra-parliamentary forces have been accusing the government and the prime minister of maintaining martial law for political reasons, but now they have finally lifted it.
Also, during the second and final reading, Parliament passed the bill tabled by Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Alen Simonian, proposing to increase fines for insult and defamation. Based on the changes, those found guilty of insulting another person will be fined for 3 million Armenian drams instead of the current 1 million, while the fine for defamation will be increased from the current 2 to 6 million AMD. The bill was passed despite the fact the government said that Simonian did not substantiate that the existing compensation was not enough. According to Simonian, the bill will help protect people's honor and dignity from insults and defamations.
Well, a number of media organizations issued a joint statement urging Armenia's president to not sign this bill into law. According to the statement, the change is extremely dangerous considering the fact that government officials and politicians tend to perceive, even the most sort of objective criticism as a form of an insult, and then they take the person to court. The statement goes on to say that such lawsuits can be fatal for the future operation of many media outlets. It's curious to me how do they define what an insult is? How do I perceive an insult as opposed to somebody else? And if we criticize a particular politician,
it will be up to the court to decide, and like much else in Armenia, we need trust in the courts, and a lot is left up to the courts. Well, Parliament also passed a bill tabled by the government that would dissolve the Special Investigative Service and instead establish an anti-corruption committee. The newly created body will investigate only corruption-related cases. For now, 20 investigators of the Investigative Service will work at the Anti-Corruption Committee, and the Special Investigative Service was established back in 2007 to look into those criminal cases that were launched for alleged abuse of power by state officials from legislative, executive, and judicial branches.
During the second and final reading, Parliament also passed a bill tabled by Prosperous Armenia, increasing the punishment for state treason and espionage. State treason will now be punishable by 20 years to life imprisonment, whereas before it was 10 to 15 years imprisonment. Espionage will be punishable by 12 years to life imprisonment.
And finally, the National Assembly elected Arsen Mekertyan to the post of a judge of the Court of Cassation. He received 102 votes in favor. His candidacy was put forward by the Supreme Judicial Council, and prior to his appointment, Mekertyan was the president of the Court of Appeals.
This week, Onik Kasparyan, the former chief of the General Staff of Armenia's armed forces, applied to the Prosecutor General's office demanding to launch a criminal case against Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan and Defense Minister Vagharsha Harutyunyan for abuse of power. The former deputy chief of the General Staff, Diran Khachadurian, also filed a lawsuit against Defense Minister Harutyunyan and the General Staff, demanding to be reinstated to his former position. Today, the Prosecutor General's office announced that they will send Kasparyan's application to the Special Investigative Service. As a reminder, both Kasparyan and Khachadurian were dismissed following a statement by over 40 high-ranking military brass calling for the resignation of the Prime Minister. Pashinyan had characterized the move as an attempt at a military coup.
And we know what happened later. We
Right.
had the rally and the president wouldn't sign.
Went back and forth, yeah.
And as of March 22, Artak Davtyan is the new chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces. And as a reminder, President Armen Sarkisyan refused to sign the decree appointing Davtyan to the post and did not apply to the Constitutional Court regarding this issue, allowing the decision to automatically enter into force. While presenting Davtyan to the General Staff, the Prime Minister stressed that the armed forces must remain apolitical. Davtyan also issued a statement emphasizing that the armed forces are under civilian control as stipulated by the Constitution. He went on to say that the army will maintain neutrality in political matters and ensure the security and territorial integrity of the country.
On March 21, contact was lost with two contract soldiers while they were relocating from one military position to another during a snowstorm. After 2 days of search and rescue operations, the soldiers were found. One is now in critical condition. The second, unfortunately, died. An investigation is underway to reveal the details of that incident.
This week, Artsak's Defense Army published the names of 192 servicemen who were killed during the 44-day war. No bodies were recovered from areas now under Azerbaijani control. According to the latest updates, 1,518 bodies have been found during search operations.
And during a working visit to the Arakazodin region over the weekend, Prime Minister Pashinyan announced that the official number of killed during the war is, at the moment, 3,250, and that the total number of dead, according to the Prime Minister, will not exceed 4,000. He noted that currently there are 189 families who are still awaiting the results of DNA examinations.
3 members of the European Parliament issued a joint statement this week calling for the release of all Armenian detainees who continue to remain under Azerbaijani captivity. We are gravely concerned by numerous allegations of abuse of Armenian captives by Azerbaijan, as documented in particular in a recent Human Rights Watch report, read the statement. They also took note of the fact that Baku has failed to comply with the interim measures of the European Court of Human Rights, which ordered Azerbaijan to provide information about the conditions in which Armenian POWs are kept, as well as their health. The Azerbaijani Foreign Ministry also commented on the report by the Human Rights Watch, denying allegations that they have taken any action against Armenian POWs that were inconsistent with the Geneva Convention. The statement went on to accuse the International Human Rights Organization of being biased and stressed that Azerbaijan is committed to international norms.
In a conversation with Sputnik Armenia on March 22, Artsakh Security Council Secretary Vitaly Balasanyan confirmed that no conscription is currently taking place from Armenia to Artsakh, but that the Defense Army is being replenished with contract servicemen so that the caliber of Artsakh's armed forces can be maintained. He also refuted rumors that Armenia is withdrawing its subdivisions from Artsakh.
According to Balasanyan, in the wake of new geopolitical realities, Artsakh needs a professional army despite the fact that the option of terminable military service is in force. That being said, he noted that there is a sufficient number of people in the Artsakh armed forces reserves who can supplement the army when faced with military challenges.
This week, Artsakh's National Assembly passed a bill, 27 in favor with 2 abstentions, proposing to make changes in the law on language that would have Russian as an official language in Artsakh. Armenian will retain the status of state language. The proponents of the draft bill said that most Artsakh Armenians already speak Russian. The move will also allow for easier communication and greater cooperation with Russian peacekeepers who will be in Artsakh for at least 5 years. The bill encourages the printing of Russian textbooks, Russian publications, as well as Armenian and Russian language press. It will also allow state operations to be conducted in Russian.
Well, it's good that the bill encourages Armenian publications also. Zoravor Surp Asfazazin Church in the town of Mekhakavan, Jebrail, that is now under Azerbaijani control, has been completely destroyed. This information was confirmed by BBC World News, which prepared a short documentary about the missing church. There is video evidence substantiating that the church was not destroyed during the war and that it was intact when Azerbaijani forces took control over the territory.
Well, Anna Nagdalian, the spokesperson of the Foreign Ministry, condemned the crime, saying that Azerbaijan committed it on the grounds of religious hatred. Nagdalian also said that despite Azerbaijan's effort to present itself to the world as, quote, a center of tolerance and multiculturalism, it has only consolidated its position as a pioneer in the destruction of Christian heritage. The attempts of the Azerbaijani leadership to justify this barbarism are even more concerning, as it shows that the destruction was intentional and is reminiscent of the systematic destruction of Nakhichevan's historical and cultural heritage, she added. Nagdalian called on the international community to take measures to stop and condemn such crimes.
And Geram Stepanyan is the new human rights defender of Artsakh. He worked priorly as assistant to Artsakh's Speaker of Parliament. The post became vacant after the former ombudsman Ardak Beklarian was appointed to the post of the chief of staff of Artsakh's president.
During this week's cabinet meeting, Armenia's government approved to continue providing compensation to those families that hosted residents of Artsakh who were displaced forcibly because of the war. The program has been extended until May. Host families in Armenia receive 30,000 Armenian dirham per guest, while those in Artsakh receive 45,000 Armenian dirhams. Mesrop Arakelian, the Minister of Labor and Social Affairs, noted that currently between 25 to 30,000 Artsakhis, residents of Artsakh, live in Armenia, and 3,000 host families are receiving monthly compensation.
Hagop Ashakian, the Minister of High-Tech Industry, said in a Facebook post that at least 20,000 specialists will be needed in the high-tech industry in the coming 5 years. He noted that the sector grew by 30% in 2018 and 2019, and despite the critical situation in the country, growth was over 20% in 2020. And last week, we reported that an incident between Ashakian and a journalist, Paylak Fahradian, had taken place. Video footage showed Arshakian hitting Fahradian in the face at a restaurant. During a press briefing following the government session, Arshakian apologized to everyone who witnessed the incident. He apologized to the journalistic community and to Fahradian himself also.
Also, the Minister of Education, Science, Culture and Sport, Varam Dumanyan, announced this week that the government plans to increase funding for science by 2.7 billion Armenian dirham for the upcoming year. And salaries of those working in the police patrol service will increase from 190,000 to 320,000 Armenian dirham. That's approximately a 68% increase, and the decision will enter into force on April 1.
And we didn't speak about the COVID situation in the country. And as of March 26th, there are 13,976 active cases in Armenia. This is 3,000 more than last week. And there are 3,434 people dead in Armenia because of the pandemic.
And yet, I sound like a broken record. Anybody's listening, please wear the mask. Please try and maintain social distancing. I know we're all tired. I know I'm tired of it. But the numbers, this is the third wave we're seeing, and already they're talking about a shortage of beds in hospitals and hospitals not being prepared again. So,
well, we had 1,005 cases in today alone.
Just today alone. That's right. So it's hovering between 18 to 20% of tests that are coming back positive. So please stay safe. Have a good weekend, and we will see you again next Friday.